Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Here we go.
Here we go. I just see the flood of people coming in right now, which is the best sign to see. So welcome everybody. We're excited to have everybody here. We'll give you all a few seconds to get settled, get oriented, go grab a water, grab a beer, whatever you need to do. Buckle up, because this is going to be one of those fun conversations that I'm sure polarizing is a understatement, but walking away from this episode is going to be insightful and enlightening, to say the least. But James, we'll kill about 30 more seconds. Tell us a little about what's going on right now in your world. How's New York? How's life? We're good?
New York is great. I mean, it's a little cold this week, but it's starting to look up, starting to have fewer of those days where I'm like, walk out of the house and immediately want to turn back around and walk back inside. But it's definitely getting there. Team and I've been working on deploying billing and getting billing finally out the door. So I'm really excited about that. So, everything's looking up.
Bless you on billing and CPQ and that project. That's as well as I did, that's not one of the easier ones that you decided to bite off and chew right now. So, oh yeah. Well, too good. Well, we've got I would argue and say we've got a quorum. So we got a lot of folks on. We're going to dive right in. I look at this topic and I look at all things RevOps, and this is the world that you've been living in for so long, and you and I have known each other for years. I'm excited to dive into this. To say this is a polarizing topic would be an understatement. And I say polarizing again, if for everybody here, that pendulum swings really far one way or the other. Have we rebranded, and is it just sales ops in disguise, or are we truly in a RevOps world? I'm going to throw this out there, and I'm going to ask for a little bit of forgiveness as we go into it. This is going to be highly interactive. The folks that are on this call, everybody that I'm looking through, a lot of these names, I know there are some hot takes and a lot of hot opinions. We're going to get to those and be interactive. Get that feedback to us as we get through this conversation. Please jump into the chat, jump into the Q&A. Who knows? If you have a hot topic, we might promote you to be one of the speakers in this, and you might get a little airtime. But we won't get too far into this before we do a couple of things real quick. First and foremost, thank you so much to our continued sponsor with Salesforce. We all live and breathe and die in this ecosystem, and we're jazzed and excited about it, but we wouldn't be able to do what we do without the great support and sponsorship from our folks at Salesforce. Obviously, Sarah, who's not on screen right now, but I am going to point to her right here off screen, put so much time and effort and energy into putting these webinar series together. So thank you, Sarah, for all the hard work you do on this. But yeah, most importantly, James, tell us a little about yourself. Tell us about LeafLink, what you're up to, and then we'll dive right into the conversation.
Oh yeah. So my name's James MacArthur. I am the Director of Revenue Planning and Operations at LeafLink, which internally is known as RevOps. And externally, it's way too long a title, so everyone internally just started calling it RevOps. LeafLink is a wholesale cannabis marketplace. It is a platform built on top of that marketplace, and we work to help fund transactions for clients. So we have payments, we have logistics, and we have our marketplace, which we pass through about $4.5 billion in GMV every single year. And so it's a credible company, incredible industry, and I'm really pumped to be here. Not so much talk about it, but I always do love talking about it in detail.
I'll tell you, the part of the journey of watching, and not only you, James and I have known each other for years, well before even he started at LeafLink, but even watching and getting to sit sort of side saddle to the growth that him and his team are experiencing at LeafLink has been incredible. So glad to see that up and to the right and hockey stick just continue to go the way it should be going. So excited for you guys, and excited to really dive into this. Again, highly interactive. We got a lot of folks on right now. I hope, especially as we think about our community, when we think about WizOps, we are here to enable and embrace and elevate the WizOps community, which is fully comprised of RevOps and sales ops and marketing ops and Salesforce consultancy. So everybody here has a different background, especially the folks that are joining this call. We want to hear from you. Please light up the chat, light up the Q&A. We're going to do our best to moderate it. But first and foremost, we're going to dive right in. When I think about this, and you and I have both been in a little bit of a similar journey. well before RevOps was a term and a word, and especially what we see now. I'm not gonna call it a buzzword. It's substantiated in the way that we do our business, but it's a hot topic. 400% year over year growth from a title perspective on LinkedIn is one statistic for it, but so much revolves around this now. But before we go too far into this, it's been an evolution. You and I have been a little bit on some of the same journeys of this. We've had titles before that were not RevOps, that were operations focused.
Yeah.
In your opinion, how has RevOps evolved just over the last 5 years? We'll start there.
So 5 years ago, I would say the concept we have as RevOps didn't even exist. I think what we saw 5 years ago was you had marketing ops, you had sales ops, CS ops was a whisper that existed out in the world. Billing ops, similarly. Legal ops was just DocuSign. And none of these things existed. And so over the course, as phrased terms like product-led growth go from being hushed whispers in quiet rooms to being actually true things that everyone talks about, as the focus goes from, and nobody hunt me down after this, as our focus goes away from dialing for dollars into being consultative salespeople, into focusing on the entire customer journey, what we've seen is like the focus shift away from being, okay, marketing ops are sending MQLs over, we're looking at views, we're looking for opens, we're looking at all of these things, to now they're going, okay, let's see that end-to-end attribution. First touch attribution died a horrible death as it needed to. Last touch attribution is well on its way. And we're now talking about, okay, where are we, how are we delivering marketing assets to every point along the funnel? And it's now become this thing where it's no longer sales are the only people that are revenue generating, marketing isn't revenue generating. Now it's something where it's every single customer interaction across the entire funnel can be considered revenue generating, because at the end of the day, if your support team has a horrible experience working with a client, that's a revenue loser. Like, you're going to lose revenue based on that. If your onboarding team is too slow, that person's never going to get on board and never actually going to grow. So it's gone away from being like only the sales team generates revenue to the entire company generates revenue in literally everything they do.
You're spot on. And it's, I think part of this evolution that we're experiencing is rightfully so. And I don't want to say that it is a deterrent or a negative to any other principle or vein of a business. We've heard the word silos often, and it's so true. There, for a long time, companies did operate in this, and you have your dedicated ops person in marketing, your dedicated ops person in sales, success, finance. I don't think there was enough formality around it, and I think that's what we're seeing right now. I don't see this as a flash in a pan. I don't see RevOps as a movement that's going to die quickly. If anything, again, we're only seeing it substantiate and grow further. Similar story, similar vein to you. The first two RevOps roles, I'm going to call it RevOps roles. I started as sales ops manager for one company, and about 3 months into it, our CEO came to me. He's like, Brad, I know you're supporting sales. Don't get me wrong. I see that you're supporting our VP of sales. I know you directly report to them. That's about 30% of your job. I see what you're doing in marketing. I see what you're doing in success. Like, it's more revenue centric than it is sales centric. And he was, again, almost to the T. It was about 5 or 6 years ago when Nick, my old CEO, came to me and said, cool, we're adjusting your title. And I remember saying, like, dope. Does that mean I get like a pay raise for that, or I get a little more equity or something? He's like, no, just the title changing, nothing else. I was like, well, you got my hopes up, but okay. But that was my first aha moment. Same thing happened to me at Terminus. I worked for our CRO for a while, but quickly shifted to CFO. And I think the bigger thing that we're all realizing, it's revenue centric. And if there's anything that I hope comes along with RevOps, yes, we're breaking down silos for how operations works, but there is such a larger underpinning and a bigger foundation underneath. Everybody in the company is revenue centric. That should be the motto. You know, I say this to everybody on our team. My hope is that if you're sitting at a hotel bar, or if you're in the airport and somebody says, hey, what do you do? My hope is that they can at least say what we do and why we do it and how we do it, and be revenue centric in their thoughts. Why wouldn't that be the case for everybody in every position? So now, bigger hot take, and here it comes. Where do you think this is going? We know what the last 5 years look like. Where are we heading now? Next 5 years?
So the way I see it going is, and this is definitely going to get me hunted down, is I see the traditional idea of sales starting to disappear. When I think where we're going is a land of consultation where customers don't need to jump through hoops to make a transaction. In a product-led growth world, it's you give them access to the product and then they come to you and say, hey, I do want to pay for this. And your team goes from being like, hey, can I fit this widget into your budget, to going, okay, this works for you, this is great, based on your usage, I see these things that could be better. And it takes your sales team from being that kind of incendiary attack dog that we have right now, where I get 50 emails a day that are like, James, how are you? I would love to talk to you about this product. And none of them are personalized. All of them are fine. But we get away from that and get to more of a place where you're talking about the idea of ABM at scale, where you're talking about the idea of making sure we're talking to people where they want to be talked to and how they want to be talked to. It's the idea of taking this data-driven culture we're all working towards and using that to build a true awareness funnel that doesn't require incredible 11, 13 step outreach sequences to get there. And it's the place where RevOps is going, and I said this before and I didn't want to say it out loud, it's almost the anti-sales, where you're taking it from a place where you're trying to sell people things to where you're talking to people about their needs and getting them into the product that makes the most sense to them and is the best value for their business, but very much in that product-led growth sense. And I think that's where we're going, because I think the transactional side of the business does need to make a shift, because what we're seeing is there are a lot of companies that aren't hitting quota. Everyone has largely the same SDR playbook. And everyone has largely the same tool set that they're using for said SDR playbook. And so it's the tools are shifting, the terms are shifting, and I see that continuing to shift further as we go.
I completely agree. I think we're in, I don't want to say too charismatically or too bullish on this, but we are in a new state of sales and a new state of engaging with the customer. And I don't want to just totally ball up the word sales and throw it away. But that's the opposite of that. True to form, as I sit here and run a company, I will forever now be in sales, because we're all going to be centric to how we grow our businesses, right? But meeting your customer where they want to be is so important. And I do now look at this as an underpinning of how RevOps does that. Again, we'll banter a little bit. And again, I hope everybody that's on here, got close to 60 folks on, chime in. We want to hear your hot takes. I saw a few come in already in the chat. But I want to hear from you. Ask questions. We're ready to fire at will on those questions. But I think terminology and how we dictate and the dictation of what the words mean is important. But the biggest underlying piece of this is how we serve customers. And I think almost 60 folks that are on here that are RevOps Eric, you're spot on. It is land and expand motion. It is not just initial sell. I look back, and even at my time at Terminus, Tim Kopp, our CEO over there, said it for a very long time. Retention is the new acquisition. And so, a lot of this so far extends outside of the initial sale. And I'm going to bring us all back full circle to what we're talking about right now. Is this a rebranded sales ops to RevOps? And I'm going to go pretty bullish on this, and I'll plant my flag, and I might put my Kevlar vest on the same way you just said it, James. Might get a couple shots fired at it, but so much of RevOps right now is not just sales centric. It is, how do you keep that customer? How do you watch that customer come all the way through the very top, the first interaction, first touch, second touch, multi-touch, last touch? There's an argument there, and I promise we'll probably unpack that at some point in the shop talk. But I look at so much of this as how do we actually create our customer journey? And let's not worry about the actual title inside an organization. That's important, but how do we take care of a customer journey? The thing that I will now ask you in a tougher, more meaty question is, how can RevOps professionals like yourself ensure teams take a holistic approach to supporting teams beyond what we just talked about, which is very sales heavy? How do you advocate? How do you plant your flag internally, even at LeafLink right now, to make sure that you ensure there's a holistic approach and it's not just in one vein or in one department?
There's no easy way to do it, because to kind of put a finer point in what you just said, like, we are the guardians of the funnel. Like, when it comes to the customer journey, we are the guardians of that journey. We are the protectors of that journey. We are there to make sure at every single step people are working towards that. So, and I see Christy is on here. She'll know what this is, but it's like, our team is broken out into strategy, tools, enablements, insights, and we focus very heavily and are focusing very heavily on the enablement side to make sure that teams can speak to what are the primary pieces that marketing is helping with this. We're working together with marketing. I have a great relationship with our growth marketing manager and that entire team in terms of connecting the dots through the funnel. So it's very much legwork. The way you get into this, the way you break down silos, is kind of Kool-Aid manning your way into the room and being like, look, you guys have these projects going on. Let's align. Like, I have this, I can facilitate here. I can put your content into these people's hands. And if it's CS team, go, okay, you're talking to these clients and they're all asking this question again and again and again. We have this case study that marketing created 3 months ago. How do we get that into your hands there? And it's going back and saying, okay, all these different pieces, it's adding value at every step of the way, which then by itself will force you into the conversation whenever these things come up.
Yes, so much of it, and I think it, not to be too coy here, it takes a little bit of every company that we've all been in to stub your toe a little bit to realize that importance. And I think what you find so often, and I've found it in previous roles, and I'm not going to say that we're perfect here. There's been plenty of times where we'll even talk, and Sarah, who, not Sarah Bell, who runs all of our webinars, Sarah Bush, we have 2 Sarah B's now. Sarah Bush is our new head of RevOps. She's experiencing this. I have to remind her even right now, she was on a call with us earlier today. She's on day 13 of her RevOps journey, internally owning RevOps here at Sonar. And I tell her so often still at this point, let's reflect, let's take it all in, let's make sure that we don't make too fast of decisions. And when I say we've all stubbed our toe, every company has been here before, where it's like, I've got this initiative, I've got this one thing, we're going to go hammer it out, we're going to make it happen, it's the best thing for the business, and they get halfway through it, maybe more, maybe less. They're like, shit, we've done this already. Or, man, I should have talked to this other department. Like, why aren't we thinking about that more critically, making sure we have this alignment? So it's such a strong point. So I'm gonna throw you a curveball. We are getting a lot of traction right now. So first off, high five to my guy Eric Lopez for jumping on, big time WizOps guy, big supporter. Don't hate me when I read this word for word, Eric. I know you take some hot takes, but here we are. What are y'all's thoughts on centralizing versus decentralizing, and when do one or the other, and when to do one or the other? I've heard Red talked about various strategies of alignment and organization. The reason I ask is because RevOps as a concept is a centralizing action, a heritage of business. You have, James, I will argue, more experience than I do in this, because you've seen it on 2 lenses. You've seen it from a consulting angle and you've seen it from an internal angle. When, where, why, and how do we centralize into one group versus, again, breaking down the silos?
So there is there's always a cost benefit to both sides, which is when you're in a large organization, like I've worked with Fortune 100s that were entirely where the team I was on was a subsection of a team that was a subsection of a team that was a subsection of sales ops. And we had no communication with the outside world. It was a bunker. And the benefit of that was we were very specialized. We got everything we needed to do done. And that is the benefit and the reason why traditional leaders love decentralizing operation operations into these silos, because the perception of the amount of work you get done is significantly higher when you're not sharing resources. Because you tell a person to go do a thing, it's not, oh, let me see how that can fit in the pipeline with this project and this project. It's, oh yeah, absolutely, boss, let me go do that for you right now. And in a world of RevOps, there are gives and takes. So the value of centralization is you end up with a much more cohesive journey. You end up with a much more consistent funnel, much more consistent customer interactions. Everything stays consistent. One message you build as one, which is actually my team, when we sat down for our quarterly retreat, we sat down and we actually came up, and that is one of our tenets as a team. We have 4 tenets, and one of them is we build as one. And so the value of centralization is that you end up with a much cleaner product long term, but the pain at the beginning is going to be there. So the value of decentralization is, I see in larger organizations, it can very much, there needs to be a decentralized aspect to RevOps at a large organization, because you're going to need specialists. Somebody's got to create a mailing campaign. Someone's got to create that. Like, yep. Someone has to write content. Someone has to go into HubSpot and make workflows. Like, that has to happen. But at the end of the day, all of those people in the higher level strategy needs to roll into one org. So I value decentralized execution with centralized strategy.
Yeah, I love that. Value decentralized execution on centralized strategy. It's a lot to take in. I argue, what nuance, what sound bites. I love that. I look at so much of this that, and we have this conversation so often with a lot of our customers. When's the right time to pull that trigger? I hate to be that person, but I'm going to throw it out there. It depends. I don't want to give the vanilla, just like generic answer there, but it really does. It depends so much on your business strategy, where you are in your growth, like when it makes sense. One of the biggest risks that most executives face or department leaders face in centralizing, everybody fights for headcount. I do it, James, you do it, everybody probably on this call fights for headcount on their team, especially in departmental level, sales, marketing, success. And so their fear there is like, well, if we centralize, I'm going to lose my operations headcount. And it's going to go into this other group that I sadly don't have too much control over. And I think that's one of the underlying like beauties of it. When you have your centralized side of it, you're removing bias. And for anybody here that's pro, let's keep the silos, let me stay in my group, stay in my lane, that's fine too. Again, it's part of the journey. It's part of where you need to be as your company grows. But when you have so much underlying bias and you're the 1 or 2 people that are operating the right way, you can't help unless, if you're operations and you report to sales, by hook or crook, you are going to prioritize sales. You're going to look at those metrics. And if there's ever an argument, you're not going to rock, paper, scissors with marketing to figure out who gets that attribution. You're going to say, no, I report to sales. It's going to be favorable to me. I'm going to make sure we're over there. So I don't want to think that it's too, let's pick sides, let's be favorite on that side of it. But that's just part of the fact of the matter in the orgs that you work in and the way you run your P&Ls. But here's my biggest question. And I think this is a part of that pendulum swing journey that we're in. I don't know if we're going to swing fully back the other way. But I'll twofold this. Should we stick with RevOps as the actual branding and the titling of this department? Or is it time for a rebrand? Hot take, go.
So my hot take is, yes, it does kind of depend, but I do believe it is time for us to reframe what we're doing. We are go-to-market operations. We are taking products to market. We are the teams that are making sure that when we build product, it's getting into the hands of customers. So go-to-market operations covers all the bases. It gets, for many traditional long-term managers, revenue is sales. And until that breaks, it's going to always have this measure of, is it sales ops? Is it not? And so it's something where I see, yes, go-to-market operations, I think is a cleaner path. I think it makes more sense from a perception standpoint. And I think it's easier to explain from that standpoint because people are calling, we just rebranded our entire organization, our entire revenue organization to go to market. And we are the operational side of that organization.
Yeah, I completely agree. Looking through the chats right now, I absolutely love it. I'm going to, I'm going to high five and agree with Christy on her points that she's making. This was a fun question, and coming from my good friend, Atlanta local as well, John Knight. James, why and how do you equate having specialists with a correlation to decentralization?
So at the end of the day, I have a logistics org within LeafLink. And in that logistics org, I have various needs that are product specific. I have a logistics billing solution. I have various sales motions that need to be accounted for that are specific, and account management and servicing motions that are very specific to that logistics org. Now, I can sit here and say, okay, we'll fold that in and have our entire team handle it, or I can have someone truly learn that, specialize in it, and then have that sort of dotted line relationship with that team to ensure that we're getting the right information in. So when I say decentralization, I don't mean org chart decentralization. What I mean is, that the team, the specialists, are actually developing the skills they need to better service our internal teams in terms of getting product to customers, getting things into the funnel, getting content out to our clients. Like that's the job for us. And so at the end of the day, if specializing people into various degrees needs to happen to do that, it's not enemy to centralization to have them break out and have one person who's really fucking good at HubSpot workflows. Like it's not and talks to the head of marketing every day. That's not bad overall. And it just helps add in to the context with which your entire team operates.
Yeah, you're spot on. This was God, I love this thread right now. I'm trying to stay like focused while listening to you and read so much of the comments. This actually reflects on one of the conversations I had with Andy Moat. I know a lot of folks here know Andy, both from his time at Culture Amp as a RevOps leader, and now as someone who's just absolutely killing it with what they're doing with Gated and making sure email. We actually have him on an episode coming up in 2 weeks. Sorry. Sarah keeps me honest on these things. So him and I talked about this for a minute where we were saying, all right, are we centralizing? Are we decentralizing? Like, all right, let's say that we have RevOps now. And we're building our RevOps teams. And this is part of the momentum that we're all building. There's no longer a RevOps person at a company. There's a RevOps team. And I think everybody on here, almost 60 plus people will high five that comment. Where he challenged me, it's like, okay, cool, build your team out. Where are their specializations? And it goes exactly down to this like decentralized aspect of it. Do you start to build out your teams based on your different departments? Do you now have a RevOps person who's focused on sales? A RevOps person who's focused on success, a RevOps person focused on marketing? Congratulations, you really didn't break down any silos there. You just kind of put a layer on top of them and then you kept siloing. Or do you start going into your specialization routes of, no, this person is systems focused. This person is process focused. This person is reporting focused. Those are disciplines that we have inside of RevOps. And I think where him and I were bantering so much, I don't want to spoil much of what we have coming up with him in a couple of weeks, but it's such a hot take because you can break down silos and then build your own little mini silos inside of it. And I don't want to call it a moot point, but you're just essentially layering inside of it more than anything. But I digress. It's an interesting take there because now we're starting to get to the spot. We've all won. And I think everybody on this call collectively will high five each other and say, we've won. We're not a RevOps team of one anymore. We are an actual RevOps team of many. And that motion's not going anywhere. So to make this full circle, I know we're at the top of time. I want to keep everybody honest and get them back to their next calls. I think titling of it and the way we depict it is important. I think how we execute it arguably is so much more. The one thing I'll ask you in party, and I ask every single person that's on shOPS Talk with us, you and I have known each other for so long, I kind of know where the answer to this is going to be. But I ask everybody, fire up the DeLorean, go back in time when you were starting your RevOps journey, which so many folks that are on this call right now are in the midst of starting. We're in year 1 to 3 right now, and you're so far past year 1 to 3. But when you reflect, what advice would you give to former James, and especially to everybody on this call, on how to truly embrace RevOps and make sure their career is in the right growth trajectory? What advice would you give?
Take your time. Like, slow down. Slow the hell down. Like that's the advice, because it's when you get spooled up and you drop into a new org, and you drop into this world of RevOps, it's so easy to just sprint to the finish line again and again and again. And it's really, really hard to stop. Look at the overall strategy behind what you're doing, especially in the beginning. Look at the overall strategy of what you're doing. Get a feel for it. Get really, really good at documentation. Get really, really good at the enablement side of this. Slow down, learn everything, and then rush forward. I think older me, and still, training enablement manager for my team, Emily Yandel, is on this call. She will say, I still do it. I still just run for the fences. And it's something that I just think you've got to practice.
You have to. Slow is the new fast. Eric, you're spot on. And Jen, who I was slacking with earlier this week, you're so right. Like, what we all find in the world that we're in, if we go fast, congratulations, you're going to take a step forward and you're going to take 10 steps back. Why not take that first step forward at the right pace and prevent yourself from going back? I think too many folks think speed is the key to success. And if I can make everybody happy, and if I can execute the tasks they're doing, slow is smooth and smooth is fast. Stephanie, one of my favorite people, also here in Atlanta. I love it. It is so true. Like, take your time. I think the one thing that people, I'm just going to sort of ad lib here on your comment. So many people think that speed to execution builds credibility, which I think in a perfect vacuum, when you do it the right way, you're right, it does. But what happens when something breaks? Because inevitably, we are all here to be fixers. When you break something, you lose that credibility. So if your whole goal there was to go fast and build that like relationship with one department, like, yes, we're best friends, I'm going to service you, I'm going to get all the stuff you need. The minute you break that, trust goes out the window, and now you're backpedaling. So to everyone here, especially early in the career and journey, slow down, and you end up in a great spot like James here, running RevOps for an amazing company with LeafLink. I know we're 4 minutes over, but James, can't thank you enough for the time, dropping all the knowledge on us. I know there are a lot of hot takes. Don't worry, we'll follow up with everyone here to get your hot take on how RevOps and titling all works together harmoniously, but to get everybody back on their day. Thank you so much, James. Can't thank you enough. I'll see you in New York soon. You'll see me hopefully in Atlanta soon, but we'll be together soon. Thank you, everyone.
Right.
Have a great afternoon.
Thank you. All right.
See you guys. Bye.